Oh yeah, welcome to episode 121 of the Permaculture PIMPcast, where PIMP stands for Permaculture is my passion, as you heard in the show intro. How you doing, son?
Pretty good. How are you?
Good. This episode brought to y'all by Hickory Ridge Soap from Two Old Crows, Homestead.com.
Turn that simp into a pimp.
Bam! Also, Heaven's Harvest, y'all, 10% off with promo code PERMA. Get all your preparedness needs squared away over there. And folks, I can't think of a more... good night. I'm not going to go down the whole 9 yards of all the thousands of reasons why you really ought to be considering preparedness right now. In fact, I'm going to get into a little bit of that in a little bit. But if you have to fill some gaps, check out Heaven's Harvest. You definitely got to fill gaps when it comes to your seeds. They got some ballin' seeds that actually bat 1,000 down there for us. They also have some other things that you may not be able to fill within your own personal arsenal in terms of food and supplies and water purification, things like that. So go check them out over there, 10% off with promo code PERMA. And if you would like to tip a pimp, go check us out on the Fountain app. Even though there seems to be, son, I ran across a pretty awesome dude yesterday. Seen him before, and he was letting me know that the Fountain app, when it comes to us, everything else works great, but when it comes to us, we got some problems, as you well know.
Yeah. I think we went over a comment last episode talking about the Fountain app. Like the last couple uploads weren't getting up there or something like that, which it's not like we upload our podcast to the host. And then the host takes that RSS feed and spreads it out to all the podcast players. So that's not something we do manually every single time or ever. I've never manually uploaded anything to Fountain app. It should be automatically. So I don't know if they had some sort of, well, it was just us. So I don't know.
USS Liberty. All right.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. I'll cover more of that later. Maybe. But anyway, if you'd like to go check us out over there and drop some sats, I'm not even going to try to pronounce it, man. I mess it up every single episode.
Stash Toshis.
Yeah,
that's just their new name.
Well, it might mess everybody else up. So yeah, anyway, if you'd like to do that over there, if you would listen to all your podcasts through that, and it's actually pretty awesome. So if you'd like to drop a little bit of coin over to us in the form of a derivation of a Bitcoin, that's where you can do it.
There's a guy that I do jiu-jitsu with who listens to the podcast, and he's considerably older, and his job is to buy and sell Bitcoin for other people. Every time he hears that Stash Toshi part, he just cringes.
Yeah, I'm sure he does, man. I mean, there are things like Joel Salatin said once. He was in an interview. He was like, people kind of break his chops about how little he knows about pop culture, but he's like, I know a lot about other things.
Yeah.
And, I guess I could, in my own way, say exactly the same thing. There's a lot of these things, folks, I just don't get. I don't understand. And I know it's not that I'm not intelligent. That's not the case. It's just I don't want to add any more bandwidth to my brain outside of what I think is important or what I like. So that's also, and it really goes back into what I was talking with. I was over there doing an interview with the, the Fearless podcast.
Boys.
Well, the Texas boys on YouTube have a podcast called the Fearless Podcast. I was just on with TD, and we were talking about some of this stuff, man. So, by the way, y'all, go check them out. Just did an interview over there and dropped a lot of information. I hope people are going to find. Actually, it wasn't just me. What I love about those guys over there, particularly the dad, man, it's like me and this dude were cut from the same exact cloth. The crazy thing about it is all these obscure bits of knowledge that I know about, he knows what they are. And he could tell you chapter and verse on every single bit of it. So what I want to try to do in the future is a lot of people are asking for something of an esoteric or a history podcast talking about these things that we should know, but have been intentionally occulted or hidden from our knowledge. I want to try to do a show with him in the future where we pick a topic and we discuss it and we talk about all the things that are true about this thing that you don't know about or haven't been taught. Not to say, hey, look how smart we are, but I think it would work really, really awesome if there was a corroboration of people doing their own study and have arrived at the same place. And yeah. I think that would be I think it would be a beneficial thing for all the people out there that are wanting that episode. So I'm going to try to put that together.
Well, I think we should also do one with Joel Thomas from Kill the Mockingbirds. Because last night that Shape of Shadows documentary aired on Merkle Media. It's talking about the neighborhood or the neighbor of Skinwalker Ranch. So you guys definitely want to check it out at Shape of Shadows. But Joel, like in the live Q&A after the documentary premiered and all that stuff, everybody just wanted to hear what Joel had to say.
I believe it, man.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy
And people love Joel.
Yeah, he's wicked smart about so many things, man. And by the way, he's super talented. I mean, the music that you hear in our transitions and the one at the very end, it came from Joel and Van Tesla. So that's his group. So anyway, we'll just jump right into farm news. I guess we kind of did that already. So a lot of things going on around here, like everybody else. But one of the things we're doing is trying to get more land. We're working on land acquisition. And if you've listened to any of the previous shows we've done on this podcast where we talked about it, we are using the very same methods we taught to you to acquire land right now at a time where everybody says you can't do it. It's out of reach. Look, when we get this done, I'll explain to you chapter and verse how it happened.
Yeah.
But right now, I don't know who may or may not be listening to this right now. I just want to let you know that the methods I talked about there, they work. They work. You just got to put some foot to butt and not be afraid of hearing no, or, hey, it's just not going to work out. So get yourself trained to hearing and being okay with hearing the word no sometimes. You'd be shocked how many times you actually hear a yes. So other things going on around here as we speak. We're recording this a little bit early because William's going to be heading off on a
consultation tour of the West.
Yeah, so he's going to be out in the far West and hopefully back very, very soon. But while we're doing this podcast, keep in mind we're not going to have a download from Eric, Pastor Lon, or Chef Snow because we're recording a little bit early before they usually submit whatever it is they want to drop for that show. So right now I got extract going out there. I've been going night and day. Not literally, but I've been doing a whole lot of extract, folks.
No, sometimes it's going night and day.
Well,
sometimes you can hear that bubbler at night.
Yeah, you can. And the reason is, folks, this is a really awesome way. When you make some really bomb compost, you can stretch it out beyond anything you ever dreamed of just by knowing these other techniques. And we're going to try to talk more about that in the future, but that's what's going on right now. Yesterday, your mom and I went for a hike, and it's kind of embarrassing because there's a lot of reasons that we moved to this place. One of them being all of the outdoor things that you can do. Rivers everywhere, streams everywhere, hiking trails everywhere. And we went out doing that yesterday alongside one of the many streams over here, really looking for a fishing spot. We're going to try to do more of that. That was part of what we were doing. We're scouting a fishing spot. So it looks
which river were you checking out?
I don't remember the name of it. It was a tributary that basically dumps into the French Broad. Huh. And we were out there walking this thing. There was other people out there, and good night, man. It was just a joy to be able to get out, walk around, just kind of enjoy things. I mean, this is stuff we don't do nearly enough at a time where, everybody seems to be on nonstop vacation. I'll cover more of that in a little bit later. But, so folks, I want to also encourage you. I know I mentioned it earlier, but I want to say it again. I said things on that Fearless podcast. And by the way, we had a massive technical difficulty.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah. So check this out.
I did too. When I did my interview, it was like maybe 10, 15 minutes delayed just because of the technical difficulties we had beforehand. And then he prayed and then we're good.
Ain't that, well, I didn't, and I wish now that I did, because the time that we had technical difficulties, every time we pray, y'all, you pray that the Lord binds that stuff up, and it's amazing how many things start working all of a sudden. Check this out. So I'm in an interview with him, and it's nearing about an hour. I mean, the conversation was going in such a way, when he and I are on there, good night, man. We talk about things that I know need to get discussed and a lot of people don't know about. We start hitting in on this one topic. Now, my iPad, which I was doing the interview on, was at 30%. It literally jumped. This is a brand new iPad. I ain't had it since, Christmas?
No, you've had it a year.
Ain't been that low. Okay, my birthday would make it a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, so at the end of this month. Okay, so we'll still call it pretty doggone new. I barely use the thing except for the podcast. Maybe a time or two for other things, but almost never use it. And this thing was on 30%. I can usually go 5 days without ever having to charge this thing. You know how you mess with a device, you know about how much life it has before you got to plug it in.
Yeah.
So when I got into the podcast, it was probably 40%. Here we are about an hour in. This thing drops from 30% down to 5%, and I get these things flashing up on the screen like, hey, I'm like, what? I go to plug it in. I'm like, okay, well, no big deal. I'll just plug it in because the charge for
we
that
got
Apple
chargers
computer.
right here.
Yeah, it's sitting right there. I go to plug it in, will not charge, will not do anything. So basically I said, hey, we're going to have to cut this thing short because, obviously I got some technical problems. And it was right on the heels of talking about some things I'm sure the powers that shouldn't be don't want it talked about. Then all of a sudden he shuts down the podcast, and then right on cue, thing starts charging. right on cue.
Yeah.
As soon as it's over, it starts charging. Did nothing different. Didn't do anything at all.
Imagine that.
Yeah. So, folks, I know everybody knows it at this point, but man, you really got to pay attention to the things they don't want you to hear and the folks they don't want you to criticize. In fact, people like the SGT report are actually blowing my mind because now they're going in, they're talking about some of the stuff that we've been kind of talking about, and they've been rather overt about it. And the people that have been seriously overt about it are suffering serious consequences. Whole variety of them.
If you want to share in some of these consequences, go ahead and type in what happened to the USS Liberty on ChatGPT. See what happens.
Really?
I don't know what happens. I'm just saying.
Oh.
If you want to join in the technical difficulties, just go ahead and do that.
Yeah, just like that. You won't get emails. You won't, people say, hey, man, I've emailed you 1,000 times. And then all of a sudden, look, y'all, we are in this digital panopticon and nobody really wants to talk about it. And very few people want to say anything about it.
Yeah.
But it is absolutely curious. I'm sure everybody out there who has a smartphone has said something, and then moments later, all of a sudden, guess what's popping up on your phone?
Well, notice that we've behaved on YouTube recently. And by behaved, I mean doing exactly what the algorithm wants. And notice our views have started going back up to the appropriate view count that should be for the channel size that we have.
Yeah. And so that's exactly, I mean, it's not as if they know there's a real distinction between the PIMPcast and the YouTube channel. But it does look like that they've eased off the brakes a little bit. We'll just see how long that lasts.
Right.
But that's exactly why, as part of why we started this whole thing, is that we can do the how-to, which is very important. I don't want to neglect to point that out. We can do some of the comedy we do and the how-to on the YouTube channel. We can do that, and it'll be just fine. And the thing is, it's a massive blessing, I know, to a lot of people because, man, I'm looking at the responses in that last video about the tree hay.
Right. Yeah.
And I had no idea how many people did not know about that. I'm not dogging anybody or saying, oh, bad you didn't know about this. No, there's a lot of stuff we don't know about. And frankly, there's a lot I don't know about, and I'm learning.
Some of this we do just without thought, like without second thought. Some of the stuff we just do, and we don't think, oh, this would be very, very good information for some people.
Well, your mom was actually the one that came up with that idea.
Yeah.
And we've covered tree hay before. But the only difference is we just William's doing a more in-depth job of being the director for these videos instead of just going out there, folks. The way it would normally go in the past is that we go out there with a camera and we just film whatever it is we got going on that day.
Well, the big difference between when we started YouTube till now is people's attention span. Like if you look at the social media that's come out since then and has been pushed since we started YouTube, there's Reels and there's TikTok, which is like 60 seconds of information at a time. So we're having to adjust our YouTube videos to accommodate for the less attention span that people have. So we have to have more, like the information is no longer good enough. Like really good information is no longer good enough. So now we have to put in really good information and these attention breaking aspects of the video.
So it's actually telling the story, I think, a little bit better. It's like Don King said, when, granted, Don King isn't exactly anybody's favorite person, but he was once asked about how he did his boxing promotions and stuff like that. But he made a really good point, especially in these times. He said, look, if you don't make it a spectacle, if you don't have a story with whatever, I don't care if it's the best boxers on the planet fighting for the heavyweight title. If you don't make a story out of that, if you do not convey that story or make it entertainment, then all you have is two fools beating the crap out of each other. And he's right. I mean, it's Don King, but you could be a notorious liar and still tell the truth.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, he's right on the money. So no matter how good the information is, if we don't do a better job of conveying it or trying to work within, like you said, the paradigm or the algorithms that are out there, then it's not going to get to the people that need it. Because right now, we have record numbers jumping into this space. I can tell you because of all the emails I get. And by the way, folks, if I don't respond to your email, please understand. It's one of two things. Either I didn't get it or I was either going to cover it on the PIMPcast. Maybe it was a question you were asking and I'll cover it on the PIMPcast. Or just know that no matter what, if it comes to me, I guarantee I'm reading it. I may not always have time to respond, but up until now, I am responding. So if you don't get a response, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, they're playing games with certain things that we do and say and try to get out there. So if you don't get a response, please know that I'm not too big for my britches. I can guarantee that. It's just, it's not getting out or it didn't get to me. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
All right. So going in, we're going to jump. Like I said, we don't have the downloads from the other contributors to the program right now. So we're going to jump right into the bad news, good news. For the new people out there, for every one bad news, we give you two good ones. I can only think of one show where I didn't do that, where I gave you, since we started doing this segment, where there was actually two bad and two good. And sometimes the good might be bad, but I try to put a good slant on it. So the bad, I'm not even going to try to dance around this one, and I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. Every time I say that, I wind up doing it. But bad news is Maui. Good night, man. So explain something to me here. Biden decides, okay, we're going to give $2 million to Maui, but we got $24 billion to send to Ukraine.
$2 million doesn't even put a dent into Oprah Winfrey's house.
No, it's
not even like a decent fraction of her house.
And based on what I'm seeing out there, it's I'll tell you the thing that's just flooring me is all the directed energy. I know we kind of covered that before. More and more, it's on the lips of other people out there. They're looking at that fire in California. They're looking at this one. They're looking at 9/11. They're looking at all these different things, these overlays where directed energy was definitely used in all these things. You're not going to say, hey, the steel's gone, but the paper's there. Not a single filing cabinet in the entire, one file cabinet they found in the World Trade Center, and it was underground, and it was mangled and charred. Not a single file cabinet, even though there were thousands in that building. Not one of them was found except for the one in the basement. So you got paper completely unaffected, but not a toilet, no porcelain, no metal. Nothing. No metal.
I mean, metal found, but
a little bit of metal.
Melted.
Right. So you got that going on. And then plus there was also a combination of thermite and stuff like that. And believe me, in my previous employment, I had a lot of understanding on how to use that stuff, how to make it and all that stuff. It was part of what I did in the Army. I won't go into any of that right now because I don't need any copycats out there. But all this directed energy that happened in these other things that we do know about, people are now seeing it in Maui where things just don't make sense. But in addition to that, man, you have horrible stories out there like, the entire families found huddled together in Maui homes. I mean, morgues are out of body bags, the locals are claiming, and still you barely hear a peep about this in the mainstream prostitute media. Very few people are actually talking about this. So folks, drop as many prayers. I mean,
they're too busy talking about Trump indictment.
Yeah. That's the real tragedy and all. Well, the tragedy is far wide, and there's a lot of tragedy going around right now. But folks, I want to tell you that offer as many prayers as you possibly can out there. And honestly, pray that these people raise up and demand justice. I pray every night when I'm with your mom and we do our nightly prayers. I'm praying that there's a revival. I'm praying that people just wake up and recognize what's going on. But it's like, no matter how dreadful the information, nobody seems to really care.
Everybody thought that Texas was going to lead the succession. Turns out it's going to be Hawaii.
Hey, you know what, man? You got a whole bunch of BJ Penns over there, man. There ain't no telling what might twist off. I mean, they are Americans, and nobody's really caring. You're saying, okay, the property of Oprah is unaffected. Jeff Bezos, he's unaffected, but you got properties. I mean, this is too doggone specific. for it to just be random, folks. And if you think that the powers that shouldn't be aren't this diabolical, then you need to pull your head out of your fourth port of contact.
Yeah. Dang. I was going to say something that caught me off guard.
That's what it is.
I was going to say they done pissed off a bunch of Maori warriors on that fish diet.
Man, I'm telling you what, dude, these guys ain't nothing to play with, man. I mean, there's a reason a lot of the natives, they wouldn't let anybody get too stupid on this island. When you get down to brass tacks, folks, we're going to need a bunch of people to raise up and see things for what they are. I mean, okay, what are you hoping? They're going to get to you last? You're either an activist or an inactivist at the end of the day. Even you may think, well, I don't have a podcast. I don't have a YouTube. Well, neither did I once upon a time. But I would still talk to the people, even when there wasn't a single. If you doubt me, talk to all the guys I worked with back in Texas. They will tell you, even before I had a YouTube channel, even before I had any podcast, before anybody knew anything about me, I would talk to every and anybody about the very things I'm talking to you about right now. Didn't care about notoriety, still don't care about it. Didn't care about any of these other things that are going on. At the end of the day, the only thing I cared about was getting this information. Now, there was two things I tried to do. Wake people up concerning the things that were going on, whether it was the latest shooting or 9/11 or JFK, you name it, just to get their brain working to think that these things are happening. But in addition to that, I was also evangelizing this sublime design science we call permaculture. So I was doing that long before. So if you think that you got to have some platform, no, you don't. You just need to have a voice. The town crier was one of the most powerful people. Another history lesson. Back once upon a time, what did they do? The herald in ancient Rome, what did they do? They stood up literally on a soapbox or a rock or elevated position, and they spoke to the town about the things that were going on. Look, it's no different today. So where do you go? Maybe you go to the feed store. Maybe talk about this to the people there. At first, they may think you're crazy, but the truth is on your side. Evangelize this stuff. Remember, once again, you're either an activist or an inactivist.
But remember, the town crier and the herald all had bodyguards as well. Like, they didn't have just people standing up there by themselves. So I'm saying that to say, keep in mind that you might piss off quite a few people while doing this.
At the same time, there is something to be said about tact. You can find, which I haven't been accused of having a whole lot of, especially as of late. So you can use things like the Socratic method to get somebody to think and even think they came up with the idea. If you're clever enough at it, learn what that is. Find out a way to present this information in a very passive way to where you can almost inoculate them.
And if they're getting pissed off, it seems to be on the right track, because you usually get mad before you get awake.
Yeah, that's how it works 9 times out of 10. So we'll jump into the good news. So RFK Jr. says the West provoked Putin into invading Ukraine. Well, how about that? Okay, so RFK Jr., I don't trust him. I don't trust any of these clowns. Anybody running for president, I don't trust him. But at the end of the day, I can applaud. If you get something right, I can sit here and applaud and say, wow, way to go. Excellent job. And right there, I think he knocked it out of the park. I mean, there's a lot going on in Ukraine where it was basically where all of I'm not going to go through it all right now. What I'm glad about is, like I told you a moment ago, yes, RFK Jr. has a wide, despite all the people in the media not trying to give him a voice, there's enough people out there, like what you just heard right now, that are spreading this information, and they're inoculating the minds of all the people that were putting out these support Ukraine. Well, how many people are going to put up support Maui stickers?
Yeah, exactly. How many people are going to put up an American flag to support Maui instead of a Ukrainian flag to support some country you probably didn't even know about till recently?
Right. And ask how many of them can they find it on a map. Ask them what Stalin did to Ukraine. Ask him how many people died there thanks to that butcher Stalin.
Is Hawaii off the West Coast or the East Coast?
Yeah, well,
I bet they can't answer that.
Yeah, that would be a really good man on the street question out there. But honestly, I'm just so glad that RFK Jr. is actually putting this truth out in the zeitgeist. People like Sean at the SGT Report, he's talking about things now that honestly, I don't know that I would have ever heard before. I'm hearing people even in other media that are allowing things to be said on there that would not have been said before, or they're just kind of piecing it out there to where people are starting to ask critical questions of the ones who really run things behind the scenes. Because honestly, this is all stuff we can prove. There's no two ways about it.
Yeah. These aren't theories.
No. All right, so other good news. Well, I don't know if it's good news or not, but I'm going to call it good news. Compilation. There's a bunch of videos out there of millennials and what do you call them, Gen Xers?
I think so.
Yep. Crushed by inflation freak out over cost of soaring. There's a lot of videos out there. And people are losing their ever-loving minds because of how much things cost, but they're the same people that voted for that moron that's in there right now.
Yeah, and also they're the same group of labor force that's not working right now. Or the ones that are also saying, I'm saying they as if I'm not a part of the same generation, but it's the same generation that is like, oh, do you accommodate for, was it called time blindness or something like that?
Yeah.
Being late all the time? Like, no, you don't accommodate for that. Like, there's very obvious, they just won't, they aren't willing to work. A lot of them, how many of them are waiting for that $15 an hour job? Meanwhile, they're passing all these $10 an hour jobs. They could be making money.
You know what blows my mind is you have, for example, one of the places I partner with, they had a girl they brought in, and typical millennial, like early 20s, got out of college and can't find a job. So here she is working at this place. And she's making good money for the job she was doing. First day on the job, they can't find her. They end up finding her outside, and they go up to her and say, hey, what's going on? Well, I just feel like I need a break. And there's like, is there some medical concern? Is there something? No, it's just I have to take a break whenever I feel the need to. They're like, what? And of course, they're like, well, that's not really how it works around here.
No.
So go.
Or any other job.
Right. So we're going to need you to get back in there. Okay, just give me 5 minutes. Like, no, you just took a break half an hour ago. I mean, you need to get back in there. So next thing you know, they sent her on the first thing smoking out of there, say, here's your money, hit the bricks. And had the audacity to feel like she was mistreated. So yeah, this is part of it. I mean, time blindness and all this other stuff. We're going to have to get back to the old ways. I mean, otherwise it's going to be a lot of people will perish. I mean, you know, I saw it back when we lived just outside of Kansas City years ago. People were really content to die in their neighborhoods because the trucks couldn't get by during a snowstorm.
Oh, yeah. Instead of shoveling it themselves.
Instead of going out there and shoveling, getting the entire neighborhood saying, hey, let's go out here with some shovels and knock this out. I mean, we were at your uncle's place, and we shoveled out a quarter mile of driveway by hand.
Yeah.
By hand. But meanwhile, you can't get a bunch of hood rats to get out here and shovel out their own street. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. It's really now that was years and years ago. Here we are, fast forward to modern times, and these millennial freakouts are losing their ever-loving minds because they're like, we can't afford this, we can't afford that. But you know what I find very curious about this is that a lot of these millennials that I'm aware of are on nonstop vacation. You got Rome falling around you right now, but they're on nonstop vacation. We know some. Yeah. And even though it's funny, the brokest people I know are the ones that are on constant vacation.
Escapism.
Yes.
Yeah, they're constantly escaping. That's what it is.
You hate your life or your job or whatever it is that's going on so much. I can't even get my head around. These are people that generally ration hot dogs every night.
Yeah.
But you got to go to...
No, not hot dogs. Not hot dogs. Vegan snacks or whatever vegan meals they're on right now.
It's not always those people. I mean, there's a whole lot of people out there complaining. You know, they're eating... These are like families.
Yeah.
They're on a hot dog diet. You go to the store and you buy the worst of the worst so you can go on a vacation to escape this life you've carved out for yourself. And I am just floored by this. That amazingly, the brokest people I know are the ones that seem to live on nonstop vacation.
Yep.
I don't even get it. All right, y'all, when we get back, we're going to jump straight into it.
It's time to eat. I don't want it discreet. What I am cooking, I keep it a vibe, even a sheet. Not here to make friends. Rent free in their heads. They don't like what I say, so they say that I work for the fans. When you're out of the box for the truth, they call you a side, cause what they assume.
Oh, yeah. Speaking about my man, Joel Thomas, there he is once again. Want to give a hat tip to Van Tesla and, the other podcasts that we talk about all the time where Joel's involved. And
I will say one thing about Andrew Tate. You can say whatever you want about the bad misogynistic information he gives out, but one thing he does not do is give you permission to do nothing. If you listen to any of his information, like he's not the one promoting these millennials to go on constant vacation or to be tired after 15 minutes of work or anything like that.
Well, there's a consequence to societies that roll out this way, and it usually doesn't work out well. It usually doesn't. Everybody's thinking and they're hoping that everything goes back to normal.
Yeah.
Got news for you. Folks, I'm not trying to break anybody's bubble here, but I got news for you. No society that hits this level of depravity corrects itself without the crucible of really hard times. Term I invented. All right, before we get into the main topic, EMP Shield, $50 off with promo code PERMA. Do I need to provide all the reasons why you might want to consider one right now? EMP Shield did not reach out to me, y'all. I don't know how it worked with everybody else out there, but for me, I reached out to them. I am a journeyman electrician with 25 years experience and put in a lot of transient voltage surge suppressors over the year. There's not a close second to the guarantee that you get on EMP Shield. They give you a $25,000, good night, man. 25 G's to cover all your stuff. If this thing does not do what it's supposed to do, if your stuff gets Kentucky fried on the inside of that house from a lightning strike or anything, they got you covered. 25 G's. Don't even have to hit up your own insurance.
Which, and an important part of that is that it lasts, the EMP Shield lasts the duration of the EMP. A lot of people don't think about that or think that an EMP is just a single blast and then it's done. No, EMPs come in waves.
I'll tell you what floored me is a guy that wrote a whole lot about EMP shields driving around in a Tesla. Won't go into any details on that, but yeah, that was something that was observed a little while ago. All right, so let's get into the main topic here, y'all. This is kind of, man, we kind of touched on it before, but there was something that happened yesterday that made me want to revisit it. Okay, we talked about, this is going to be concerning people care. I want you to stick with me on this one, folks. So we were talking about a little bit ago where right before the break about all these people that are on constant vacation.
Yeah.
We're talking about these people that, good night. They're looking at what they're doing as people care.
Yeah.
They need a vacation. They need to constantly be on vacation. And it's a never ending thing. There's people I know that have been on more vacations in this year alone than I've been in my entire life.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. Just this one year. And they're looking at it as a means of people care. When you really get down to brass tacks, they're doing it. Yeah, I don't know who said it, but basically everything we do is for our own pleasure or enjoyment or to avoid pain in some way or another. So you could look at that as a source of people care. You could also say a source of people care is giving resources. I'm not going to say money, but it could be resources. It could be food. It could be any number of things. It could be help that you offer to a person. That could be seen as people care. Let's say somebody's putting up a building. You and lending a hand over there is people care. Somebody who's sick.
Yeah, or intentionally putting yourself through something like 75 hard, which isn't comfortable. It's painful. It sucks, but it's also people care.
That is a very good point. Excellent observation, son, where when I was doing it, yeah, obviously I'm doing it for my own, for an extension of people care. But at the same time, I'm also looking at the productivity I was able to achieve far above and beyond that extended to the people care of other people around me. Because when I'm working on how I react to people and how I behave and how, the ancillary effects of that is that the people around me are also benefited. Even though the intention was to improve myself, I'm also improving the lives of the people around me. If I make myself a better person in every way possible, it makes me better there. People care can extend itself into a number of different ways, but I want to tell you about something without actually telling you precisely what it was. This literally happened yesterday before Michelle and I went on a hike. Our intention was to go to a particular place. I won't say what it is because I want to respect their privacy. It was to go there, capture a few things and then go on. And then part of our hike going out was to also, as we're out, maybe walk out with a couple of trash bags and create the illusion that we were doing people care with the environment by picking up trash, when in actuality, we were going to be picking up carbon to put into the next compost pile. Okay. So, they see us, everybody's giving us an attaboy thinking we're doing some earth care and people care at the same time. In actuality, we were going to go out looking for, some good mushroom spawn and, mycelial, things like that, and also leaves. Problem is, we were surrounded by rhododendrons, and I wasn't exactly sure that those are going to break down because I'm looking at leaves that look like they've been there forever.
They last a while.
Yeah, with that waxy covering on them, I'm thinking, okay, well, this ain't the best place to do it. So that didn't quite work out the way. But on the way there, we stopped at this place, and I'm not going to go into the full extent of what happened. But let's just say it was tragic and someone lost their life. And the person that lost their life lost it at their own hand. And what your mom and I didn't know is that as we rolled up here, I went in there for very, very different intentions. All of them decent, all of them good, all of them best of intentions. But when I got there, I noticed one person who lives at this place is sitting down by a vehicle, and he's clearly troubled. And I didn't know what to make of it. I kind of nodded, but something in his spirit told me that something was not right. I went over to him and asked how he was doing. And he's like, he was very reluctant to say anything. He says, "Look, man, I don't want to drag you in it, but I felt the unction at that moment to pray for him." I said, "Look, would it be okay if I prayed for you, if we prayed together?" And he said, "Yeah, it'd be great." So I did a short prayer right there on the spot. Didn't care who was watching, and as I usually don't, didn't care who was watching. Prayed for him and his family and all the things they were going through. Like I said, folks, the tragedy of this is more than I can. It's more than I can say. I can't tell you the nature of it. Like I said, I'm not going to violate anybody's privacy. So we stayed there just long enough. And then, of course, when you find yourself in those situations, you don't know what to say. You don't know what to do. I'm like, all I can do is offer my prayer. And then obviously I'm stunned. Your mom is not there as all this is going on.
Right.
And then we had to get going. We had to be somewhere else before we had to get where we were going on this hike. And then ran into a friend over there from another area. I won't go into any great detail. But anyway, go on. And it's like one of those things that's so tragic that as you're going about doing what it is you were going to do, it lingers.
Yeah.
There's no hearing this kind of news and the nature of how it happened without it attaching to you and you reflecting on something like that. So then even as your mom and I sat down to try to eat something, we prayed again for him. And then, every time you think about it, it's just in the back of your mind. There's this heaviness because, some people are going through a tragedy that is just unimaginable. And you never know how these things affect them. Before we left that place, he told me, he's like, "Hey, thanks for doing that." And then, of course, we prayed for him again and we prayed again. And of course, I'll stay in prayer. And then today, didn't see it until about, I don't know, not long before we were going to broadcast. And that's really what gave me the impetus to go ahead and do this show about it. I'll just read it without revealing any names. He says, "I really appreciate what you did for me yesterday. Really meant a lot to me. Really. Pretty much at my lowest point of the day and didn't know who to talk to. You reached out and offered a prayer and I really felt lifted up. Thanks again." Now, I want to also say this is not a guy that has ever texted me before regarding anything. Folks, what I'm trying to get at when it comes to the people care, there are people out there going through things that are unimaginable, that are just tragic, that are awful. I mean, things that we scarcely, many of us, can even imagine. And if you knew the whole situation here, it would just blow you away. What happened, how it happened, the timing, all of it. It just tears your heart out. But when these things unfold, y'all, go back to this people care. We share each other's burdens, don't we? I'm not gonna talk about what's out in the ether. I'm not gonna talk about any of that stuff. I share your burden. You share mine. It's part of our Christian ethic. And then part of that means also that people care. That you extend to people what they need at the time. And I told you this before. I've talked about this before. That even on your own thing, that even though you have this mountain of a problem that is weighing you down, that's beating you up, but you get on your knees and you pray, even though your problems are still there, they still exist when you get off your knees, you just feel a little bit better. You do. I've been there. I am there all the time where I feel like just everything's coming down on me and I get this unction to pray. Stop what I'm doing. I get on my knees and I pray. You don't have to always get on your knees. I do because if I can, because I'm able, and the good Lord is the only one I bow my knee for, and that is in prayer. So folks, I just wanted to do this topic here. I wanted to extend to you the opportunity to be that people care somebody else can be. I mean, I'm not saying any of this to brag, folks. It's not the case here. I'm not saying it to boast or anything like that. I'm just saying that the people around you, especially in these times when times are getting harder and harder, you may not be able to physically alleviate the help or the hurt that these people have, but just by praying can make all the difference in the world. And I mean praying to the good Lord, evoking the name of Jesus, my Lord and Savior. I know that people are from different faiths out there, but I would encourage you out there to consider that of all the faiths out there, I got the only risen Savior. No other has that. So folks, I want you to be out there. I want you to stay alert, stay alive, do all those things, but honestly, stay alert and stay alive and stay well as best you can for the people out there, and try to be that helping hand. Try to be that people care for all of those people. You just don't know what they may be going through, folks. Try to be there for them.
Took the red pill, but looking at the blue pill, fake steak tastes the best. But I'm looking for those pockets, the ones that think like me, But I'm looking for those pockets, oh, those pockets where we can.
Every time I hear that song, I think of Sade.
I don't even know who that is.
I know you don't. It's basically
Is it pop culture? I'm surprised you do.
I barely do. It was back in the 80s and 90s. It was some like brown lady with hair always pulled back. It's spelled S-A-D-E. I guess you should. Man, your mama named you Sadie. I'm going to call you Sadie. You can call it Sade all you want, man. You're Sadie. Or anyway. When I hear that song, I don't know. I'm sure other people out there would probably echo that. That's exactly what I think of. So anyway, before we get right into the Q&A, y'all, I want to remind you, Harvest Right is one of our sponsors. We got a link down below. Should you require any of what they have, you can save in the long run really a pile of money with Harvest Right freeze dryers. And I know we have.
Well, pile of harvest.
Well, and then also, you know, here's what a lot of people are not thinking about in terms of preparedness is that one of the ways we use it is when your mom makes an enormous dinner, which she is known to do.
It's either way too doggone much or like a bite for each of us.
Yeah. And there's no happy medium. She'll always make, if it's something that's really, really awesome that you love to eat, there ain't ever enough of it.
Man.
But if it's something else, enough to feed an entire platoon, well, what you can do with part of it is take part of that meal, literally stick it on those Harvest Right trays, freeze dry it, put it in the Mylar bags, and you got your own MREs right there. That's why I'm saying, you know, everybody considers the cost of a Harvest Right, but honestly, at this point, son, we are money ahead.
Yeah, so
with
far
all
ahead.
the things, not only the harvest we save, but also all the things we're putting back.
But yeah, one thing we need to put back this winter is that potato soup. That would be perfect in that Harvest Right freeze dryer.
I don't know how that'd be reconstituted, though. I don't even know how you'd do it in the first place.
You make the soup, throw it in the freeze dryer, and then freeze dry it.
Yeah, but that kind of soup, man, there's so much dairy in it, it's going to stick all over that thing.
It might be worth it.
I don't know. Not if I'm the one chipping it out of there. All right, we're going to jump straight into the Q&A. Got one right here from James. He's almost gave up your last name. Basically, he's in South Carolina. He says, I subscribe to your channel. Big fan of the family and the work you do. The question is, do you ever find yourself wanting or hoping some type of tool or gadget existed to make your work easier? I'm trying to come up with something to sell as a business for people who work on the farms. And I have some money put aside and I'm looking for ideas. Would you, any help would be appreciated. Now, you probably meant this in private, okay? You probably didn't want the whole world to know about this. Sorry, James, my bad. No, I'm actually going to give you some ideas there that I've given a lot of people all the way around when it comes to this kind of stuff. You're on the right track, first of all. If you can make, we were just talking about this.
Yeah.
We have things break all the time. Planned obsolescence is real, nephew. It is absolutely real. And the only things where we don't have a problem with planned obsolescence is when it's mom and pop kind of stuff. There are some other tools out there, like I bought a pitchfork that weighs like Thor's hammer.
Well, to simplify the answer, I think, like, don't invent anything new. Just make stuff that already exists that works.
Tell them about the broad fork.
How do you bend a doggone broad fork? I did. I bent a single tine on the broad fork, stabbing, and I'm not even like lifting up. I'm not doing the pull back method or anything like that. I'm just stabbing holes into the ground, wiggling it back and forth, and then pulling it straight up. I'm not even lifting with it. But somehow I bent this tine at like a 30-degree angle.
And part of it has to do with the design flaw. So
how thick is that steel?
1/4 inch.
I shouldn't even be able to produce enough force to bend that doggone thing.
We're talking 1/4 inch plate steel, but to make it lighter, they put holes in it all the way down there, and it bent on one of the compromising points of the hole. It probably seemed like a really good idea, but the problem with the hole, it's too doggone big.
It seemed like a good idea until you use it. Yeah. It's like some of these people are like, oh, we'll just overbuild some stuff and then lighten it up, which kind of counteracts what we just did, and then we'll just produce it out or push it out as a new solution.
To your point, James, William hit the nail right on the head. You don't even have to invent anything new. Come up with a broad fork. Come up with a different range of broad forks. Come up with a pitchfork that works.
Broad forks would be a killer.
Broad forks, yeah. Because people need to loosen up a whole lot of stuff. Now, we're using it right now for a particular project I don't want to talk about, but I'm just saying right off the bat, farm tools that actually work. A trowel that doesn't bend over. It may be a little heavier, but man, these old-time tools, you tell me how a tool from 100 years ago, like that a scythe.
Yeah.
It works just fine, but one right off the shelf is quit in no time flat.
Yeah, the blade part.
Right, a pitchfork. If you have the wherewithal, you're wondering what, honestly, I would specialize in making. Now, this is obviously going to go back to where you find your interests, but I'm going to highly suggest to you and everybody else out there, make things. I don't care if I got to pay twice as much for it. If I don't have to buy it again in a month from now, a year from now, make it. I'll tell you what, make things that are keepsakes.
Yeah.
For real.
Like something you can pass on to the next generation.
Something you could say, look, this thing's going to last so long. Put your initials in it. Carve your initials into the handle. Then pass it on down to your kid. Then your grandkid. Your great-grandkid. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, you could actually try to build something like that. Hand tools, farm tools, anything like that. Anything on the shelf. We literally bought a pitchfork. Tine bent over picking up hay. Compost. It was compost.
Tines bent. Not just, no, it wasn't just one tine, Dad. It was the whole, all four of them that bent. It's like they bent at the base.
Yeah.
Picking up compost.
Yeah. This was, it's ridiculous. That's one thing I'm going to tell you right off. Here's what I'm also suggest. James, this is important. Find out what problems exist on your own homestead and find out how you can market that at a reasonable markup, for other people. Find out what you currently, if you're doing this work and there's something that might make your life a little bit easier, obviously identify that and then pass it on. find a way to mass produce whatever that thing is. That's part of what we do from time to time. There's other ideas we got coming out of the chute right now that we're not telling anybody about because in the past we've had ideas basically hijacked from us. So we're not releasing anything until it is ready to go. Is there a training video that you can put out there? There's a whole lot of things that people need right now, and they can't necessarily get on the first thing smoking. You know, let's say to get to this conference, there's people right now doing conferences and they're charging about $500 a head, telling people learn to homestead in a weekend. Okay. Well,
that ain't even possible.
Yeah. There's a lot of people doing these things and they're charging an unbelievable amount of money for some of this stuff, knowing that everybody, especially in suburbia, is really, really confused. So they go there and then they see all this stuff and then they go back. Well, then they just fleeced them for $500. Well, is there a way you can do that makes more sense? Is there some skill you can offer that makes sense?
But even as far as the tools go, I wouldn't even start off redesigning anything. I would copy existing working designs and just make the tools better. I would just go with that.
Design them as if you expect that thing to be passed down from generation to generation.
Yeah,
that's
the construction part, yeah.
Right off the top of my head, that is something you could do. And honestly, it wouldn't take long to market it if it does what it's supposed to do because everybody's sick and tired of planned obsolescence.
Or if you have a tool that's backed by a lifetime warranty, you know, that's a pretty good warranty to give to a tool. Yeah. I understand that, you know, it can be, but build it with that anticipation maybe.
There's a lot of, man, I'd be real careful about those kinds of warranties. I mean.
Okay, build it with the expectation of potentially, like if you have to meet this standard, it could be your own personal standard or something like that. I got one from Melodious on the Fountain app. Thank you so much for taking time to answer questions. I think your whole family is awesome. No question.
Oh, well, thank you very much, my man. We try.
Or a woman. Melodious.
Oh, Melodious.
Could be either way.
Yep. We don't know, but whomever you are, thank you very much for the kind words. This one here. Hi, Billy. I'm new to watching your channel, and I'm really loving it while I'm learning a lot. Good. That's exactly what we try to do here. I'll be planting some comfrey that I ordered from you tomorrow, and it's making me wonder if you will have bone sauce back in stock this fall when my fruit trees go dormant. Do you think that bone sauce painted on the fruit trees will protect them? Well, basically, she's wondering, will it protect the tree, the comfrey, the strawberries, and the white clover from being eaten by other things? I'll be honest with you. It's hard to say. Because honestly, bone sauce has a different reaction in different places, and the deer are doing things these last 2 years especially that nobody's ever really seen before. There's behavior that they're exhibiting right now that nobody has ever seen before. Nobody can really understand it. And it seems to be happening all over. I mean, before there was a time where you put bone sauce on, deer ain't coming within a quarter mile.
Well, just to hammer onto that point, like the deer crossing the road around here are even different. They're to the point now where you're like, they're not scared of you at all. They take their time crossing the road. But there have been a few times where they're almost across the road and they seemed like confused. I don't get that part has stood out to me, and I don't understand that.
Right. I'm seeing everybody, especially if you watch nature like that. I got to answer your question this way. Is that there was a time I would have been able to say, yeah, you know, you put it on, you better be real, real careful because, man, they won't come around. And that's last 2 years, I don't know what's happened. I mean, bone sauce works better than anything else on the market. No two ways about that. And it takes a long time to make. It's difficult to make. And yes, I should have some ready by when you need it. But in the past, I would have told you, yeah, absolutely, it'll work. These days, yes, it's going to work better than anything you can buy, but is it going to protect everything else around it? In the past, I would have told you yes. Now, I don't know because there's weird things going on. And this bone sauce that I'm making now, y'all, is so powerful. I mean, it is.
Yeah, it's funky.
It is so powerful that no deer should come within 1,000 paces of it. And I got to literally, the only things I know that it works very well on around here are the things that are directly painted with it.
Yeah.
So that's
like your tree for sure is going to be safe. But once you start expanding out to the white clover aspect, I don't know, but also you should, in any permaculture design, you should account for about 10% being lost to nature. So it's not necessarily a bad thing that the deer are coming to eat the white clover, especially if that's your only meat source at the time.
Well, yeah, you could be growing a deer garden at the end of the day. So I'm sorry, that's the best answer I can offer right now, Susan.
Got a couple from the Texas boys. The first one is Michael Landon admitted to writing his scripts through automatic writing, so he got his mojo from devils.
Whoa, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah,
See, and see, this is exactly why I got to have him back on the show, dude, because honestly, I mean, we compliment each other in a scary kind of way, like we were raised together.
And then the other one he said is Congo is where all the transnational core are stealing all the materials for the green agenda.
That's right.
Yep.
You know what else is interesting about that? I talked to my friend Thomas. We went to high school together, really great friends, and he lives actually in the country over from Congo.
You want to say it?
He lives in Uganda.
Yeah.
And he's back and forth 6 months out of the year. He's married to a Ugandan woman, and he was born and raised in America. And he's like, dude, he said, where we live in Uganda, the weather's like San Diego. It's perfect weather. Everybody gets along. Christian ethics. He's like, dude, every time we got to spend 6 months over here in the U.S. because he does a lot of heat and air work. He's like, dude, we can't get back soon enough. He says, I can't even let my kid watch commercials over here.
Yeah.
We can't even let our kids watch commercials. Well, anyway, everything that was said right there, he echoed almost word for word. And folks, to add to that, you know when it all started? Because the Congo was in dispute all the way back in the time of Kennedy. Well, Kennedy was making some real progress through there, even through using the UN in the Congo. Well, Kennedy gets murdered. What happens? Congo does a 180, could have gone to the better side of things. Incredible resources over there. Now, Congo has basically been used like Ukraine.
It should be one of the world leaders.
Yes.
With the amount of resources that they have.
All through
there.
Africa and and places like it. So yes, it's funny because Thomas told me exactly the very same thing, is that it's basically, people have reached out to me and asked me to go to Congo, as I've talked about. And Thomas came up with a solution that is honestly extraordinary. So
which backs up the point that it doesn't matter who owns the land; it matters who controls it.
There you go. There you go.
Got one on the YouTube channel, Permaculture PIMPcast, from Susquehanna Homestead 5064. Can sheep be contained with only electric netting, or would you recommend you also having your entire pasture fenced in with welded wire? PIMPcast.
We've done a video on that, and in fact, that was the very video that the people in over in the Congo reached out to me for. Okay, so if you can afford it, if you can make it happen, welded wire all the way around the perimeter, if you can. You don't have to do that. Now, ultimately, unless you're Greg Judy, you're going to want to do that. Greg Judy has his sheep in with a single wire.
Yeah,
a single wire, and that took some doing. He started with I think 5 or 6, it may have been. He eventually got down to 3, then 2, then 1, and the way he did it was brilliant. So he's got a flock out there that basically they respect that single wire. If they don't, he'll always have to make an example out of somebody every once in a while. But yes, it can be done. That takes a lot of work. I would look to the master Greg Judy to get the full extent of how that works. But
I would say it depends on scale. I would say scale is going to be, because you don't want to be going in debt over fencing. So let's say you like Susquehanna Homestead. I can imagine you're in like pretty big plains area. Maybe you might want to. It depends on the acreage. I don't
know. Susquehanna is like a Pennsylvania word. So yeah. So
I was thinking
that may not be the case. Yeah, he's right. It does. In fact, I grew up not far from the Susquehanna River, but that's how I know. But anyway, the point of it being is that it all depends at the end of the day. But yeah, if you have a homestead, let's say it's 5, 10 acres, whatever the case may be, if you can cover the whole thing in welded wire, man, absolutely go for it.
Yeah.
You'll be glad you did. And if you can also, within that welded wire, put in a livestock guardian dog that you can keep contained within there, yeah, you're going to do a whole lot. They're going to go to your neighbors if you don't. I mean, if you do,
Yeah.
they're going to go to easier targets. I'll put it that way, because that's exactly what happens around here.
That's exactly what happens around here.
Yep. So Ryan says, fellas, I would love to hear you guys do an episode on an overview of what permaculture is in general, from the basics of where to start to a new property, or, you know, something like that.
That's what this whole channel is the overview.
Well,
you know how long of an episode that would be.
No, I think he makes a really good point. I think he really does, because we're getting new people all the time. And yeah, you could go all the way back, but I think we really do need to hit it again, and also from another perspective.
Yeah.
I think that's one that maybe we can do on our next episode, but that is definitely something, because honestly, it's been so bastardized and so maligned, and people really don't even know what it means. A lot of people don't even know what it means anymore.
We could also do a class, or not a class, but a episode talking about why permaculture is taught in the order that it's taught. Because a lot of people drop out their first 2 or 3 weeks of permaculture because they're like, wow, I thought this was going to be about like mandala gardens or swales.
Yeah.
And instead, we're talking about yields.
Yeah, and they don't realize how important that stuff is to know, because you need that backbone in that order.
In order to design.
Exactly.
Yeah. Got one from Gaffrig on the YouTube channel. Billy and William, regarding your best tasting peach tree, here's something for you to research. Years ago, I recall reading that fruit orchards, berries, grapes, etc., were best grown in poor soil. Supposedly, the distressed trees and vines produce better tasting fruit. Rich soil produces beautiful foliage, but average to poor fruit. Sounds counterintuitive to me, but sometimes the old timers know things we don't. What do you think?
Well, I think Stefan Subkowiak, and I think also Paul Gauci would like to have a little chat with whoever would think that that would be the way to do it, because both of them have proven that their fruit and everything else is on another level just by improving the soil. And honestly, the microbial life in that soil, that is what their claim to fame has been. So every example I know of now, in terms of things like grapes and stuff like that, I've never seen there's certain woody things that do very, very well in lousy soil.
I think the term bad soil is too broad, or poor soil is too broad, because in those cases, you're going to have better tasting fruit in areas that aren't over irrigated. Does that make sense? Like, okay, so if you buy blueberries from the grocery store and they're all big, plump, and real juicy and all that stuff, but they seem like watered down.
Right.
Compared to these blueberries here, which some of them are smaller, shriveled up. I mean, some of them are shriveled up, but their like flavor explodes. They aren't getting the irrigation that those other blueberries would be getting. And it seems like the fruit is just oversized. There's too much, almost like they've been injected with liquid, and then they're just like about to burst. I don't think that's the way fruit should be.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that maybe that's the case there, but I don't know that, especially with a lot of fruit trees. I mean, there's going to be exceptions to every rule, but generally, the more microbial life you can get down in that soil, the better you can make that soil. Number one, the life of your tree itself is going to be better. You know, you're going to have a better survival rate for something that can get down there, put roots down deep. Like Dr. Ingham has also proved that if you can get that, the trees will put their roots down deeper than you can possibly imagine if they can do it.
Well, we don't really know the limit, do we?
We don't even know.
Yeah, because that one example she gave was like through a doggone mountain into a cave.
Yeah. Yeah, so we don't even know the full extent of how far. Now, we do know that anything beyond 300 pounds per square inch, no root's going to go through.
Right.
That's pretty much, or a taproot rather, but generally 150 pounds per square inch is about the golden rule in which, you know, these things are going to be able to kind of, you know, where they're going to drop off. So we got one from Donna. Says, good morning, just finished the 100th episode. Thank you, Donna. Tell everybody about us, by the way, folks. Tell everybody. Spread this thing far and wide, and please give us a 5-star review. In an episode, y'all were discovering how to deal with ticks. When I was a kid, we used brewer's yeast on our dogs, cats, horses, and cows. You mix it in the food, they ingest it. Basically, in a nutshell, what she's saying here is that the ticks, fleas, and mosquitoes and stuff can't stand it. Okay, I'm going to tell you one method we used back in jungle school in Panama. And we used to take the matches and take the heads, cut them off, put them, you know, take them like a bunch of pills and swallow it. And then I'm seriously doubting that was any good for us.
And that's why you're doing heavy metal detox right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So we would take that stuff and it was, I mean, you would stink, but you never had a problem with anything wanting to bite you. Mosquitoes, nothing. I mean, they'd buzz around, but there was never anything stuck to you.
Yeah, they don't mess with McDonald's food either, Dad.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when you're a dumb kid, that's why they get young people in the military.
Got one. Last one I got is from Janu on the YouTube channel. Just found out about a berry plant that is an N2 fixer, gomi. So she's saying that gomi berries are nitrogen fixers. I don't think so.
See, there's a whole lot of debate going on, man. You go, it's funny. This is where the internet can want to get you to want to shoot that computer. Is as many people as you
real
say
quick
here.
to answer her question from people that I trust, from what they say, gomi does not fix nitrogen, and goji is the one that fixes nitrogen. But a lot of people, I think, have maybe been fooled by it. Either way, plant it.
Absolutely. I mean, and honestly, there are so many other ways to fix nitrogen. And we're also finding out that, you know, there's a whole lot of things in terms of fixing nitrogen that really don't go the way we always thought they were. There's a lot of other...
Like the pioneer species and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Are they there to fix the soil, or are they there because that's the soil? That's what the soil conditions are dictating?
Yeah, there's a bunch of different debate out there. Now, it's not going to hurt to get atmospheric nitrogen down in there for the benefit. I mean, if it's producing these blood red nitrogen fixing nodules out there for the benefit of the plants around them, I mean, there's so much work that's done in this area, so much we're all learning about, all these things that we didn't know much about. But you know what? It's not going to hurt at the end of the day to do any nitrogen fixation. All right, y'all. Hopefully all of this was a blessing. Once again, y'all, look out for the other people out there. Be a blessing every possible way you can. Till next time, stay alert.
Stay alive.